Hello, this is Pixel Freak, and we're doing part 25 of the Final Fantasy Dimensions walkthrough. So in this piece, we're heading out to go to another Esper dungeon. We're going to go pick up Shiva. And I actually skipped out, I should kind of explain this. There's actually a dungeon out here. It's a forest little area that you go through, and I went through it and collected all the treasure boxes out of it. But unfortunately, it's like the next piece. It's part 26 or 27 down the road. So I cleaned it out without needing to clean it out. And so I edited that piece out, and then I'll put it back in once we go into it. But you'll see it up here as I approach it. There's a funny edit, which is why I mentioned that. It's like I'm on one side of the forest, and then all of a sudden I'm on the other side of the forest. And you can actually just walk around it to get to where this particular Esper is. The summon, I should say. So right there, all of a sudden it looks like, hey, what happened? So I went through a dungeon there, or I should say the forest, and then lifed up right there, and then the cave where the summon is right there up in the upper left-hand corner. So we will revisit that area shortly. If you want to do this optimally, you should have gone right there at the very beginning of the entrance. But the way I do it, I fight a few fights here, and I pick up this treasure box. There's one on the right there, and then I use another tent just because I'm kind of like, well, I'm right next to the entrance. I might as well start myself fresh again. This is not too difficult of a dungeon, but there are a couple little things here and there. There's a couple treasure boxes that you actually can't get to until after you've defeated Shiva. Once you defeat her, you can go back, all the ice here thaws, and then it allows you to get to those two treasure boxes. Also, I've edited some of... Oh, here, I went too far, I gotta go back. Yeah, kind of going, what the hell? Okay. I have edited, I'd say, most of the fights out. There's a few here in the beginning, and then I think I kept about every third one as I go through. I got at least one of every unique fight, though there really isn't a whole lot going on here. Obviously, you want to be using a lot of fire spells because there are a lot of ice enemies here, especially on Shiva herself. She definitely needs fire spells. For the most part, though, there's no enemies here that cause significantly bad status ailments. Just a lot of ice spells. So expect a lot of damage, expect to need to heal quite often. Okay, so I actually step out here, I just use another tent real quick, save the game again. I was right next to the entrance, I might as well just start up, make sure I'm good again, and then go into the dungeon. Alright, and back in. We are back in the Glacial Cave. Shouldn't be a shock that the boss of this cave is Shiva. When you walk into it, it's like, I knew I was kind of picking up the summons, one on each team, and as soon as I walked into the cave, I was like, hey, Ice, this is where Shiva is, for sure. And I knew it was an optional one because I kind of had to go out of my way to get to it. And then Shiva. Alright, so once you go through this door, I think you have to go through one more room too. Yep, get through this room. And then in the next area, you want to go left rather than going down. You want to go to that staircase there on the left. There's a few treasure boxes that way, and then you will proceed on through the cave when you go south. These little golem guys, a little bit more HP, a little bit more damage they do. You might want to handle them a little bit faster, though they're not horrible. And Shiva, I think Shiva's been around as a summon since, I think, the beginning of summons. You know, since I have never played 5. actually. So I guess four had summons. 3 had summons. So I'm not sure if Shiva was one of these summons in the original 3. I think she was in the remake, the one I just did. I think she was the ice summon. Pretty positive, actually. I know she was in 4, but Ifrit wasn't in 4. The summon for fire in that game was actually one called Jin. So, I don't know. Interesting trivia. I think at least in the remake of 3, Ifrit was the fire summon. Pretty sure. That's kind of funny though, because now consistently it's always Shiva and Ifrit and Rama, right? Well, I shouldn't say that's consistent though, because in Final Fantasy X, Thunder wasn't Thunder. Lightning wasn't Rama, I don't think. I think it was something with an X. The horse, that's like this unicorn guy with an X. I think of his name. Ixiat or something like that. Ixiat. That's what I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But I don't think Rama was in that game. In 10. Alright, so I think right back there was one of those chests. And I've cut it out, that one right there. I think you can't get to that one. Is that one of them? Do I go back for it? Oh, I must go back for this one. Okay, that one up there. That one up there you can't get to because there is the waterfall here. And I'm not sure if I've cut out the part where I go to try to figure it out. I think I do. I don't think I cut it out. Yeah, see? You can't get through there. You have to wait until the water's flowing. Once you've defeated Shiva, that'll allow you to get through there. Ever since Final Fantasy IV, though, which for me it was 2. It was called 2 because that's what it was released as in the United States. Final Fantasy's always been about the magic spells, the effects on the spells, and also the summons. That was one of the things that kind of bummed me out about 13 was the summons. It was like, I'm gonna summon Shiva, and she's a motorcycle, and I was like, what the hell is this? Transformers? This is crap. It was like one step too far into ridiculousness. I think that it didn't click with me. I thought all the effects and how you summoned guys very cool. But I found that I used it very infrequently, and I just kind of found it to be a little, I don't know, over the top is probably the best way to say it. It was too much. It was too weird, I thought. I don't need my summons to be vehicles. But I guess too, when Final Fantasy VII came out, I was a little upset. There's another one right here. Treasure box can't get to. That bit of water there you'll slide on, and it's not possible to get back there to get the treasure box until you've thawed the ice. But I remember when 7 first came out, I was a little bit upset. It's like, wait, there's guns. There's a guy with a gun on his arm, and it actually upset me in the very beginning because that was their first kind of bringing technology a little bit into it. But once I got into the game quite a bit, I realized that was part of the story. The part of the whole thing about that was this story about nature versus industry, and it was the changes that man has made and our quest for energy. And I think it's really at that time that was kind of during the rise of global warming, because we really were learning about climate change and everything. In the late 80s, and so by that time climate change and everything had really set in as part of our culture, just global culture, right? And I think that was being explored more as a storyline. So when Final Fantasy VII came out, it kind of made sense. It was actually, it was kind of a thinly veiled metaphor for, you know, oil and our environment and destroying our own environment for greed and what exactly is progress. You know, is it progress to make this really big gun? But they also, in Final Fantasy VII, did this really cool thing where they had the ultimate weapons in the end of the game as well. And that was also to kind of show that, you know, nature can be a bitch too, you know? Nature can come back and just... maybe they were kind of more of a metaphor for like natural disasters, right? And to say that things are very terrible with nature as well. And the fact that the team kind of got together and defeated them kind of showed that there's two sides to the story, which is interesting. And that's interesting because that kind of parallels the idea behind Sephiroth and Cloud, and Sephiroth being one of the really cool bad guys in Final Fantasies, simply because he was rightfully so a bad guy. You know, like, he was this guy that was tormented by the fact that, you know, he was created in a lab and his mother was like this alien, and so he was more twisted and he was more approachable than a lot of other enemies. He was more, the user could have more empathy for the guy. You understand why he's the way he is, and you almost feel bad for him. You almost have a layer of sympathy for Sephiroth. And then there's the side of Cloud as well. So I think in Final Fantasy VII there was a lot of that. There was a lot of this kind of two-storied thing, which also goes along with the whole Zack and Cloud and who actually is Cloud and various perspectives. A lot more in Final Fantasy VII. I should say Final Fantasy stories in general. There's a lot more going on than people think. There's a lot more than's on the surface. They're saying a lot more. It's something that I think the last couple of the mainstream console games, 12 and 13, I don't think they had a lot of that. I mean, 12 played out a lot like the new Star Wars movies, where it was all this political mumbo jumbo. And 13, I just really couldn't figure it out what was going on. Like, I get in the broad form, I get it. So that was Shiva. Easy fight. Another one that doesn't really need explaining. Shiva is just mostly, you know, pump damage into her and heal up often. So now that she's dead, it will release the ice here, and you'll be able to go back. Don't forget to go back. Don't just teleport out, because the couple items that you go back to get, and I think it's just those two. I did look around a little bit trying to find if there was more boxes out there, and I couldn't find any more. But if I remember right, those two items are both good items. We'll see exactly what they are here in a second. But in Final Fantasy 13, I didn't like that some of the enemies, they would have this really big entrance, like they were a very important character, and I was like, oh, I gotta pay attention to this guy, and then you'd never see him again, or they'd be introduced to the player as if you knew who they were all along, but then have such a very small role in the game that it just didn't make any sense. They never really planned them out, and I think there's not a whole lot of metaphor going on there in that game, at least not that I could figure out. The story came off just like it was like a new level of convoluted story, and their stories have been getting, you know, more and more convoluted over the years. I think that one of the things they need to do is go back and kind of do a true to form thing where they bring it back a little bit and simplify exactly what's going on. These ice beasts, they have quite a bit of damage output. It's good to put them down quickly. They do like this kind of ice spray spell thing that does quite a bit of damage. Alright, so the first chest is Prism Rod. Which is the best rod in the game thus far. Good to have. Definitely if you're using a summoner or you're using a black mage, that's a necessary piece right there. Which I would assume that you'll be using one or both of those jobs. Alright, now we gotta go find, where was that waterfall at? I think it's in this one. Wait. I was like, wait, where am I going? Went backwards there for a second. Alright, and the other piece is a partisan. So that's actually a decent weapon as well, but it's more for, I think it's meant for the Dragoon. But I'm not sure if a warrior can possibly wear that. I'm not sure if it's on the list of acceptable weapons for a warrior. And it appears I don't even check. So that's the end of this piece. We'll see everybody on part 26. Make sure to like this video and subscribe. And until next time, this has been Pixel Freak.